Welcome you today to our first scholar talk in our series of programming around our new exhibition. Tonight here with us is, I'm still wondering about your first name.
Radhule.
Radhule Weininger, that one is easy for me. And Radhule came to our attention when we were looking for someone who could help us with a meditation program that we had thought to put into place here at the museum. And we hit the jackpot. We found her, she was looking for a space, and we've had 2 meditation series already on Tuesday evenings. If you haven't been there, join us next week. It's
6 to 7.
6 to 7. And I'm not a meditation pro, and I must say the 2 times that I've been attending have been in a way that I want to do more. So that's probably the best endorsement I can give you at this point. But then the next step was to, first of all, there was a question, what's the connection between a museum and meditation? Why would you want to do this besides offering a space? It's a spacious space, and it is with our current exhibition, it's kind of setting a tone to be a quiet space, which is one of the connections we could make for calling it a somewhat meditative space. As you can see, the art is abstract, meaning there is no subject matter that we're supposed to entertain with our mind. We are more invited to look at the art for its formal aspects. How is it made? What materials are used? What kind of colors do you see? What shapes? Those kind of questions are answered. Ideally, you take your time looking at art, which is another connection we can find with meditation. And speaking for myself, I can't meditate on my own, and I have a really hard time looking at art on my own, and I'm a professional in this world. So what helps me is some guidance. And this might be a good way to transition over to you. I want to give a quick little rundown on who's sitting here in front of us with a little biography. Here we go. It's not that little because Radhule has a very impressive career that I'm going to read to you now. She has a doctorate in medicine, but also a Ph.D. in psychology. And she's a clinical psychologist. She's teaching meditation and applied mindfulness. She has been at Casa for over 17 years as a resident teacher and mindfulness practitioner, I guess would be a correct term. She's mentored by Jack Kornfield in her teaching and Joanna Macy in her interest in Engaged Buddhism. Together with her husband, Michael Kearney, she founded the non-profit Mindful Heart Programs and directs Kind MindSB, a program that provides mindfulness meditation in several Santa Barbara schools. She wrote a book with a foreword by Jack Kornfield titled Heartwork, The Path of Self-Compassion. She's currently teaching a 2-year mindfulness and compassion facilitator training at MCASB, as well as a 1-year mindfulness and compassion teacher training through the Mindful Heart program. She continues to teach 4 residential retreats and various other weekend workshops, as well as a 1-year facilitator training program. Very busy woman, in addition to her private practice. You can also hear her speak not only here, but also on numerous national conferences and seminars. And she has been nationally and internationally. Yes, and that's it. Sorry. The rest you can read on our webpage. It's a little bit more in detail. And this chair is not for me, this chair is for Daniel, who will be joining us with a little bit of music later on. Okay, and I'll leave it up to Radhule to introduce the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and thanks first very much for inviting me here to this beautiful space. We just realized when we were here 2 weeks ago how wonderful the acoustic is. So Daniel, my friend who comes to the meditations, who's a musician, said, "Wow, we have to do here something." And he has he plays the guitar and he sings and he's a drummer. But he has one of these, what are they called again?
Tin drum?
Tin drum, you know, like a Russian kind of, looks like a spaceship kind of. Yeah. So we said, okay, let's do something together. Sometimes it's nice to have mindfulness of hearing, which is, you know, the sounds. Let me ask you first, who here has had experience with mindfulness, with meditation? Is there anybody who's not? Okay, good. So maybe just to say it again a little bit, and then I'll talk about how art and mindfulness do fit together. Mindfulness is really there to calm the mind and open the heart. It's really, that's what it's about. It's there to learn to be present in the present moment and to learn to be really here right now. And the present moment is, as maybe you have heard already, the place where we don't have worries about the past and we don't fret about the future. However, it's really difficult to get to this present moment, as usually we are fretting about the past and worrying about the future. And so how can we come to this present moment? And it is through sensation, whether it's touch, sound, taste, hearing, smelling. You know, these are the 5 senses. And when we are completely present with the sense, let's say the touch in our bodies, or the sensation of the touch of breath as it's arising and falling in our bodies, and we are completely focused on that. We are usually not thinking at the same time. So it's kind of a little bit of a trick to calm the mind, to kind of be really present with sensation. And usually mindfulness meditation uses the body as a primary object, and as the most subtle aspect of body, maybe the breath. And the one thing about breath is also it's always changing, it's arising and it's falling, and it's each millisecond of breath, of breathing, is different from the next. So we learn through focusing on the breath a whole bunch of things. One is to be really present. The other one is to attend to something very subtle. And we also learn to notice that everything changes, because we can really see, you know, even if we wanted to stop our breath, we can't. You know, it's always going on and really breathes us, you might say. And I think what also we learn by really focusing on the breath, that there's something going on in life that's kind of bigger than us, because even if we want to stop our breath, we couldn't. You know, remember maybe as a child you try to stop breathing and you maybe faint. That's the worst thing that can happen, and then you start breathing again. Well, there's some kind of awful games we played sometimes. Who can hold the breath the longest until you get dizzy? And you know, it's, and I think in a way that's something that's quite, I find relieving, that there is some processes that are bigger than what we can control. So one thing we learn through mindfulness meditations, that it's possible to surrender a little bit and to let go of control a little bit and to allow breath to breathe us. And in that way, breath in mindfulness meditation is different from yoga breath, which is quite controlled, and it really works well with yoga. It's not it's how yoga should be. But in mindfulness meditation, it's more about awareness than about control. So it's more like noticing what happens as we are just aware with bare attention, as we notice or we feel the breath breathing us, or we notice sounds coming in and passing through, or we notice thoughts arising and falling away, or we notice feelings arising and falling away, or images. So we notice the always changing, always transforming nature of life. And that's a really important lesson to learn, to become comfortable with everything that is changing. And so there is the concentration aspect in mindfulness meditation, which is focusing on the body, on the breath, noticing when we are thinking, feeling, imagining. But then there's also just the awareness aspect, it widens our awareness, and we notice phenomena arising and passing through without controlling them, just kind of like a little bit like a movie screen sounds too detached, but you might see maybe like fish in a fish tank, or clouds in the sky, or a leaf on a river going downstream. And there's a certain freedom in not controlling, just noticing, it's coming and it's going. And it's actually a very good lesson for life. It's like that every little thing that bothers us arises and it goes. And it doesn't mean we should just put up with everything and should be passive, but there are many things, so there's a big psychological aspect to mindfulness. That's why it's used these days a lot in psychotherapy, really, because it helps many people to work skillfully with their anxiety, with depression, with their emotions, noticing it's arising and it's passing through. And suffering really comes by holding on, by clinging or by pushing away. And even though we might feel that urge to do that we can learn to have a little bit of choice about it. Not complete choice, but just a little bit of choice. But maybe I thought I might just talk a little bit about what does this have to do with art, with creativity. And there is this one quote by Einstein which says, we can't solve problems with the same mind that created them. So in a way we have to come into a different state of mind and heart to look at what is challenging for us. And so if we are standing in front of an empty canvas, we know we are probably best when we just allow to relax and let the miraculous happen. That's another sentence, I think from Suzuki Roshi. He said the miraculous to happen is an accident, but practice makes us accident prone. So the miraculous to happen is an accident, and practice makes us accident prone. So I remember really experiencing that. I started meditating in my early 20s, which is 40 years ago. And I just remember that I was quite uptight and controlled and tightly wound. And but I always loved to paint. I always painted with my grandmother, and always that was my thing. My house is still full of not the best paintings, but paintings. And so I just noticed that my painting is the best when I'm coming from a place of relaxation, of calm, of kind of letting something come through that isn't just controlled by my little brain. And I think that's a very important aspect of creativity. It's really about, now they call it emergent phenomena. So something emerges out of maybe different aspects that kind of come together. Or like if you imagine an alchemical vessel and you have different aspects in this vessel, and you increase the heat and the pressure of concentration, something new can evolve, something new can come into being, and that's really what creativity is about. Something new to happen that we haven't controlled, that we haven't, necessarily planned. The best paintings are those that we haven't planned yet. Thank you, Delia, for coming. So glad you're here. I'm just talking for a moment, what does art and creativity have to do with mindfulness? I know you would have a lot to say about this because you are an artist. Every cell of your body. So, and I was just saying that art is very much an emergent phenomenon, something coming from seemingly nothing. It's like there is this empty canvas, or there is just space, and music is created. And as we kind of relax a little bit and let go of control, isn't that when one improvises? It's a letting go of control.
I would call it the first step is letting go, and then the second step is opening.
Opening.
And I've heard a number of musicians, just as one medium example, even like Tom Petty. I've heard artists like him say, "Oh, that song wasn't me, that was a song that just came through me." And I've experienced that, where it's like, I don't know if I want to claim writership for that piece, because it really sort of just popped through, the common denominator is that it comes at a moment when maybe you're at a point of surrender, you've totally let go and done that opening, and it just finds its way through you. Flow is the word that is often used nowadays.
Yeah.
It's accurate.
So great you're saying this, because I just talked about it. So it means I haven't influenced you to say this.
This is not a paid sponsorship.
Yeah, right. That's actually wonderful, because we just talked about surrender and giving up control and relaxing and actually opening up. And I noticed that, the last 10 years I have been writing for a long time on my book, the Heartwork, Path of Self-Compassion, and now my second book, with Shambhala Publications. And I just noticed I'm best writing when it just comes through. When I'm kind of in a relaxed space, and I actually have no idea what comes out. And it's almost like it writes itself. And you might say, why is this? And I think they are just hypotheses, or working hypotheses, you might call it. That mindfulness could be seen as moment by moment, not judgmental attention, as John Kabat-Zinn defined it. But mindfulness is also being mindful, relaxing into the field, whatever the field is, the empty and full space of the empty fullness, whatever that is, or however we want to call it. I'm sure many wisdom traditions gave it all kinds of names. It's the great mystery, as American Indians call it. And if we relax and surrender and open up with the help of practice, the miraculous to happen is an accident, but practice makes us accident prone again, then something can come through, like you and Tom Petty talked about it. And so I think that's really important about the creative process. And then the other thing is, at least according to Buddhist philosophy, and according to modern physics, everything in the universe is interdependent. And there is this concept of dependent co-arising that's talked about in Buddhist philosophy, that everything is arising in connection with everything else due to innumerable causes and conditions. So there is nothing that's separate, everything is connected. And if we are in this flow, I think that's what the flow is about. It's also a state of interconnectedness, of the opposite of separateness. Then art can happen. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm curious about, in many ancient traditions and mindful practice, you know, we learn that we're not our thoughts and we're not our emotions. We should just watch them come and go.
Yeah.
And I wonder why in our current, specifically Western society, it's easier for us, I should say it's harder for us to let the creative flow come and go and harness that, and easier for us to hold on to the anxieties and the stress. And you know, it's I think mindfulness practice is so important because it teaches us that we watch the anxiety come in and we let it go and we say, that's not me, that's not a
Right.
part of who I am. But the creative flow, it's harder for us to, first of all, witness it and then harness that and hold on to that. It's easier for us to hold on to something that's maybe fear-based or anxiety-based.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure.
Well, I'm going to use the example of songwriting because that's the thing most familiar to me. I wrote a lot of bad songs, and a lot of very contrived songs, and a lot of sort of flat and mediocre songs, and those were the ones where I was trying the hardest. And I think there's something, and we sort of speak of it when speaking of mindfulness. One way to allow those thoughts as they come to pass through is to name them. But to name them unemotionally, not to attach to them, but just kind of go, anger, I notice that, and just kind of notice it. If in songwriting, what I found, a way to wheel, so you know, a lot of songs are about love, a lot of songs are about angst and depression even, and excitement, and all of those things, and those are all potentially emotions that could pass through us, and they could overtake, they could own us, they could drive us. But to wield them into creativity, first step is just to witness them and name them. And the moment you do that, and they don't have power over you, you can then turn that energy into the song or your writing or your book or whatever it is. And it's in that noticing, it's in that distancing yourself from it in a way, but also naming it and being okay with it and allowing it. And that's where the healing comes. So, you know, the songs that mean the most to me are the ones that actually really mean something to me. And actually, as part of that songwriting process, some healing occurred.
And maybe I would add to that, because you asked, I think also why in our society now this is like this. And I think Western society is this, I don't know, without wanting to be judgmental here, but it is, the sense of self is very different. You know, it's very much ego-based and imagining a person as a kind of skin encapsulated sack of bones and organs and brain, and that's where it ends, you know, and you're very over there and I'm over here, and we are, you know, very separate, which is very different from a sense of interdependence. I just know, traveling quite a bit in India, just walking down the street there, now less than 40 years ago, but still there's just a different feeling, you know, it's like there's more like you're part of the flow. While here it's more like, oh, I'm competitive with you, I'm more you than this, and it even sneaks into meditation. Oh, she's a much better meditator than I am, or, you know. So I think what they call I, me, mine is just kind of stronger. And I think it's just the way our Greco-Roman, European, American society has grown, you know. So, and right now we are trying to find our way back a little bit, and I guess climate change especially shows us we have to, you know, come together, you know, and change our view a little bit, so the us versus you thing doesn't harm us. So I think that's probably why, you know, I was wondering sometimes, why did meditation become so popular? Because 1980, when I started in Germany, and then 84 I came to America, it still was, well, America a little more, but in Germany it was, you know, everybody thought it was a cult and dangerous and terrible and, you know, whatever. And I remember coming back to med school, they thought I had lost my mind, you know, so. And and now it's kind of, you know, I'm asked in January to teach to the psychologists of the Santa Barbara Psychological Association, and I give grand rounds at Cottage Hospital. So it's a far cry away from where we were 40 years ago. And so why is that? And maybe there are many answers. Not that I have the answer, maybe you have one, but one idea I have is that maybe, you know how life always self-corrects? And maybe there's unconsciously a sense that that's something that might help us find a little balance again between too much separateness, you know, so, yeah. But there are probably many answers, yeah. Anybody else having a question? Well, let me see how I need this.
I just want to say, I think sometimes it's hard to stay focused when you're doing mindful meditation. Because
Yeah.
you get into the breathing, then things just pop in, you know, and
Yeah.
you know what you need to be doing, and it's really hard.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll just speak about that for a little bit, because as they say, mindfulness meditation is simple but not easy. And it shouldn't be an expectation that you can just stop your thoughts. You can't. Who said that the brain is like a gland, it excretes thoughts? You know, it's like the pancreas, insulin, you know. And so, and then what thoughts come up are not under our control, you know, they are due to our environment, our family, maybe a disposition, who knows, causes and conditions, as they say. And so to know that you can't really just repress your thoughts, maybe not even to try to do that. Maybe the only thing we can do is try to refocus gently over and over and over again, and to learn to not push away or grasp. You know, but with each breath there's a new beginning. You know, so it doesn't matter if you had 5 thoughts or 110 thoughts. You know, there's nobody keeping score, nobody to compare. And I know from myself that at first this comparing mind comes up pretty strongly. Oh, I'm a terrible meditator. I had all these thoughts. I had terrible thoughts. I had whatever, you know. And so I think that's the other thing one learns with meditation is self-compassion, a sense of kindness. You know, your thoughts are not your fault. Feelings are not your fault. All you can do is practice, and maybe practice awareness, practice kindness. Come on in. And so, So, would that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. Not
Yeah.
to try too hard, not to.
Try
just
not
kinda
too
let it
hard.
happen.
And I think we learn a lot about ourselves when we do meditation. It's a little bit like a laboratory experience, in that we notice, oh, let's say, how competitive we are, or how anxious we are, or how restless we are, you know, and then to be willing to see that, you know, to have a different relationship with yourself that's not self-criticizing or self-blaming or comparing yourself. But when I have to say, besides learning to be more focused, this meditation really helped me to be more kind. And if we are more kind to ourselves, then usually we are more kind to others. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Any more questions? Hi.
I was thinking maybe we should do one meditation. And just start with the mindfulness. Should we do the mindfulness kind of meditation? Maybe I make a little, you know, like how I do with the bells usually, instead of bells, you have to.
I mean, I just constantly use my peripheral, just take your cues and just look up.
Yeah, okay. Great.
We should go, so just do a little,
Huh?
so do a regular mindfulness sort of intro.
Yeah. Okay. Doing our improv. Okay, make yourself comfortable. I'm sitting like this because I always sat like this. In Sri Lanka, when I was in this monastery, we had to sit like this. And somehow I started, and it's just my cue to myself, meditation time. But you don't have to sit like this. Just for me, it's easiest to concentrate. Let yourself settle into the sensations in your body. Let yourself feel your body. Notice the touch between your body and the chair and the ground. And notice a sense of presence, of awareness within and around you. Notice what your face feels like, if there's tightness or tension. Allow your eyes to soften with the exhale. Your forehead to open up. The muscles of your face relaxing. Your jaw letting go. Tightness in your neck and shoulders, allow your neck and shoulders to relax. Notice the feelings in the area of your chest where your heart is. Breath brushing through ever so gently. Your belly softening. Notice the back of your body. Arms, legs, your whole body being filled with presence. With spaciousness. Now imagine that this field of presence is bigger than your body, that it fills the whole room. And then imagine it is bigger than this room. Fills the whole sky. And then bigger than the sky, that presence, awareness, fills the whole universe without limit. Feeling spaciousness and a sense of knowing. From the sense of spaciousness, notice breath arising with the inhale, letting go with the exhale. Breath arising out of this vast field of awareness and falling back into it. noticing very subtle sensation and movement of your natural breath. Allowing your body to be breathed. Surrendering to breath breathing you. Again, be aware of the sense of spaciousness, of luminosity, of knowing. This vast field within and around you. And now, instead of breath being your primary object, notice sounds. Sounds arising, sounds falling away, always changing. Sounds arising and falling away, always changing. One transforming into the next. Sounds arising out of stillness and falling back into stillness. Sounds arising out of space and falling back into space. arising out of stillness, out of spaciousness, out of a sense of knowing, out of empty fullness, arising and disappearing again, always changing. Sounds always changing, sounds arising and falling away, sounds like thoughts, thoughts like sounds, thoughts arising, abiding, transforming, and falling away. Word thoughts, picture thoughts, easy thoughts, difficult thoughts, thoughts arising and falling back into this vast field of awareness, this vast field of awareness that is your home. Falling back into stillness, spaciousness, limitless, and just like sounds and like thoughts, they are feelings, emotions, arising and passing away. There's boredom arising and passing away. There's sadness arising and passing away. There's frustration arising and passing away. There is loneliness arising and passing away. All feelings, always changing, one transforming into the next. All phenomena arising and passing away. These phenomena, sounds, thoughts, feelings, images, always changing, always transforming. Hold yourself with compassion, knowing that this is your human condition, with phenomena arising and passing away, thinking, feeling, imagining, always changing, holding yourself with kindness, holding others with kindness, understanding our human condition of innumerable arising and disappearing phenomena, holding ourselves with warmth and care. Feeling this vast space of stillness, of quiet, your home, the space out of which everything arises and everything falls back into. Notice your breath arising ever so gently and falling back into space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Wondering, are there any more comments, questions, curiosities?
How often is a good amount to practice and for how long? 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
Well, I think it's good to have a daily practice just because it kind of gets your body used to it. And nowadays we know so much about neuroplasticity, how it kind of shapes neural pathways. And we know, for example, with anxiety, depression, trauma, it just really kind of realigns it. I remember when I was starting to meditate as a 22-year-old medical student, we didn't know that, but I was just sitting there thinking, I bet it does something to my brain. And now we know it does actually something to your brain, but it took, the invention of functional MRIs to actually document this. So now it's evidence-based. But I think so that's why regular practice is better. And I know these days really brief meditations are kind of more fashionable, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I think it takes a while for the mind to calm down. And I think nowadays there are so many wonderful guided meditations that helps. If you want to sit quietly, that's fine too. But if there's only mind wandering, then rather use a guided meditation. There are some apps. There's a meditation Monday nights in Ala Vista at 7 at St. Michael's University Church. Tuesdays here at 6. And Thursdays in Summerland at the Sacred Space at 6. And many other places in town. I have a website, Radhule Weininger Ph.D.com or mindfulheartprograms.org. And there are some meditations you can download for free. So, so there are many possibilities. But I think doing this regularly is definitely a good thing. And do whatever you can. It's always better to meditate than not to meditate, however often. But what do you think?
Well, speaking as the student, I found certainly the daily practice is helpful, more than 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, the 5 or 10 minutes in my mind is like I'm in a doctor's office and I'm sitting here and I can use that 5 minutes to go inward and be mindful for a few moments, and that's beneficial. But as far as the daily practice, I think it's really helpful to wake up in the morning and allot some time. And one of the things that helped me do that and get in that routine was sequestering a little space and dedicating a spot in my house where that is, and it's set up the night before. So I wake up in the morning and there's no barriers are removed, I guess is what I'm saying. It's just, you just wake up in the morning, all I gotta do is crawl in there and get on the cushion. And then the rest happens. And like for me, 40, 45 minutes changes my day. Totally changes the way the rest of the day goes.
Yeah, it definitely is. For some reason I don't actually want to wake up that early, but I wake up at 6 and I go into my backyard. I have a little backyard, but there's this little spot and I have a seat there and I have a bunch of blankets under a tarp, so even when it's cold, it's actually really nice. So when it's raining, find a spot inside. But
Thank you for the music again. It's great. If you put on a CD or anything, I probably would buy it. I'm serious. It's really relaxing
maybe
and really
for the few weeks
there's
we are
something-
here, maybe we should do this again and actually keep it, no?
Well, there's a disclaimer that goes along. I am new to this instrument.
Yeah,
The instrument does what it wants to do. I have yet to really compose. People do. There's people that play these that are amazing. They actually, and they play them skillfully, and they write songs in them. But it is also an instrument that is great for this kind of setting because you sit with it, and again, the flow thing happens. You're all part of that. Whatever came out of this tonight, you were all part of that. So it's an interesting thing to try it, but I don't have any preconceived.
Plenty good enough.
Not yet.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for contributing. And there's no questions.
Yeah.
So, sort of the two things you talked about, like creating art and being mindful, and how they're both about surrendering and allowing it to come through. Something that I guess just confuses me is that sort of in one aspect there's an output and a product, which is the art, and then meditating is just being okay with the nothingness, I guess is I'm taking on. Are they the same thing? Are they in the same vein? Are they different? Is that an idea?
It's not the same, but even with art, it's probably good not to be too hung up on the outcome. So if you slice it down to moment by moment, you might say meditation is a little bit like a sand painting. Remember these Tibetan sand paintings, when they make these sand paintings and then they kind of throw the sand into the ocean? So I don't think if that's such a huge difference, you could see it. But it's more like meditation is a wonderful foundation for creativity.
Yeah, can I throw one thing?
Sure.
Maybe just to paint the word surrender a different color, and with the color of allowance. So maybe rather, because surrendering sort of says yeah, you've given up your power, or I don't have part of this, but allowance, under the tone of mindfulness is opening yourself up and allowing the space that comes from being in a mindful place. And when you create that space, something comes into it. And that's, art can be born from what it is that comes into that allowed space. That's too nebulous or not, but
That's good.
thank you. So rather than just surrender, I give up, it's these emotions are coming, I'm going to allow them, I'm going to be with them, and wow, what might come from allowing them? And I think that's great grist for the mill.
Great, thank you. Yeah?
Well, I had an interesting experience. I could hear the arising and dissolving in the sounds of the instrument. Okay, that was real clear. But I wondered, how would this apply to a picture?
Oh, okay.
Looking at a painting, and so I started looking at this painting
I saw.
immediately to your left, or not paint, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And at first I saw a hole, and it seemed kind of drab. It wasn't too colorful. It didn't have a lot of motion. It was just kind of this big blob that was sitting there. Then I thought, maybe if I applied the arising and dissolving to each little detail, I started looking at all of the details, and I started seeing all these little creatures and things. The mind could, you look at some of the stuff in there, and you can see things that are pretty interesting. And as I did that, it came alive, and now when I look at it, I can't see it the way I did before. It's different. It is alive. It's quivering. It's thriving. It was kind of an interesting experience to apply the same concept to viewing a picture.
That's great. I have some thoughts about that. I have been studying the last few years more like some Tibetan Buddhist practice, which go right into the field aspect of awareness more than the moment by moment aspect. And if one really learns to tap right into that, which those Tibetans, I guess, figured out how to do that, there is, one really experienced this, they call that liveliness aspect of awareness. So there's another word, I forgot it now. Lively, yeah, it's suddenly awareness becomes really alive. The field becomes really alive, and it seems you kind of tapped into that.
Yeah.
And I know when I really get into my meditation, I get that, that there's a very still aspect to awareness, and there's a very active, lively, always changing aspect to awareness. And so that's wonderful. It's a whole new way of looking at art. We should somehow do something with that.
Thanks to this gentleman.
Will you be here every time? I don't know, don't say it.
I'll be here some.
Okay, good.
We shall meet again.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.